In this talk I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share something about the Swan Mysteries. And the Swan Mysteries concern some of the deepest truths of all, at least I think so. And they provide particular keys to the mystery of life itself and the pathway to the stars. And the swan is emblematic of the great poet, the one who speaks the truth. And such a person is inspired with wisdom and both sees and knows the truth and can give wisdom, inspiration and light to others. And moreover, this not only relates to individual persons, but also to the stars and to the landscape, giving clues as to how the landscape itself, as well as humans, can become like stars. This, I think, is very important for us to know. In fact, the swan references the very centre from where the universe is laid out or given birth. And the swan mystery is embodied in the whole of Shakespeare, something which I hope to explain in this talk. Now, the greatest mystery of all is that of the mystical marriage. And indeed, the mystical marriage of heaven and earth, of immortal with mortal, of male with female, of one friend with another, or of one creature with another, is the main purpose of life. As the thrice great Hermes said, as recorded in the Emerald Tablet, that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below for the performance of the wonders of one thing. The performance of the wonders of one thing, also known as the great work, is the mystical marriage, the marriage of heaven and earth, or the marriage of opposites in a complete union and expression of love. In other words, the great work is the labour of love, the work that God works from the beginning to the end, to quote a biblical phrase from Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11, as noted by Francis Bacon in his essay Cupid or the Atom. Now, in the very first chapter of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, this great work or mystical marriage is described in esoteric detail. Everything starts with the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the waters. Then the word is spoken, "Let there be light." And the waters respond, and light is born, a light that fills the whole universe. This is an action of love, a love-making, in a mystical marriage or love union that creates the light of utter joy, or ecstasy it's sometimes called. Then follows the creation of individual worlds, of galaxies of stars, suns and planets and creatures of all kinds, all brought into being so that each of us might also discover how to bring about and experience such light, such joy of love by loving each other. I'm going to share the screen now. Now, for us in the world we inhabit, heaven is portrayed in the sky by the celestial canopy of stars as laid out by God, the grand geometrician and architect of the universe. First there is the centre, the heart, and from this the circle delineating our world's cosmos is made. And the centre is called the occult pole. And the circle is defined by our sun's path, the ecliptic. It is also known as a zodiac, a circle or wheel of life. That's what zodiac means. The starting point, or points as truth is a double truth, for drawing the circle is where the meridian of the Milky Way crosses the ecliptic. There's these 2 points here I've penciled in red. One of them defines the alpha, the beginning of creating the circle or wheel of life, and it is also the omega point, as the sun returns to this point when it has completed the circle. For this, the position of the sun at midsummer is used as the marker of time. When divided into 12 equal sections, the first sign or alpha sign of the zodiac is Taurus, the bull. And this is because Taurus rules the throat, which sounds the word. And the movement of the sun as it moves from its starting point through the zodiac sign of Taurus and around the zodiac is called precessional. That is to say, the sun moves through Taurus, then Aries, then Pisces, and so on, with Gemini being the last or omega sign. So Taurus, Aries, and so on, all the way around to Gemini. Now this, in response, as it were, the midwinter sun starting on the opposite cusp of the zodiac moves through Scorpio, then Libra, then Virgo, etc. in this way. With Sagittarius being the last or omega sign. And this is equivalent to the rising of the Kundalini up the spine from root to crown and beyond. And the midsummer sun takes one age of 2,160 years to move through one sign, and a great age of approximately 26,000 years to complete the circle. Now the myth that is especially associated with the alpha sign, Taurus, is the myth of Europa and the bull. So we've got Taurus up here. And to show it a bit bigger for you, this is Taurus, the constellation of Taurus here. These are its horns, and Aldebaran, the star Aldebaran, marks the bullseye. The Hyades is the nose, associated with the breath, the outer breath of the bull. And then you've got the Pleiades, it's said to be on the back of the shoulders or neck, which represents the spiritual breath position. And it's the Pleiades that represents Europa, who sits on the neck of Taurus the bull in this myth. And then they fly off together and they make love. And they produce a child that's called Mercury. And Mercury means the true word. So they have the idea of sounding the word of truth. Now, very interestingly, this myth has been used to name Europe in the world. Europe takes its name from Europa and the bull. So immediately from this fact, we can begin to see how the heavens above have been brought down to earth beneath to accomplish a mystical marriage. Well, what has this to do with the swan? Well, the Europa and bull myth is a simplification of the Dionysian myth, wherein Zeus and Persephone, they produce Zagreus, the child, and Zagreus is raised up to become Dionysus, symbolizes the swan. Zeus and Persephone themselves are symbolized as a bull and a cow. Zagreus, when born, is a bull calf, but then Zagreus, when he's born, is attacked by the Titans and torn to pieces. But his heart is rescued by Pallas Athena, raised up to heaven in a new form as a swan. There's the swan. The bull calf becomes the swan. The mortal becomes the immortal. And the swan, represented by the constellation Cygnus, flies in the Milky Way, the path of light that arches over the sky in the heavens above. Moreover, the swan is close to the occult pole, the centre of the zodiac. To show it in more detail. So here's Cygnus the swan. There's the occult pole. So it's one of the constellations that are very close to the occult pole. Cygnus is also known as the Northern Cross, which you can see in its star formation there. It's like a cross. So just to recap, in myth or legend, Zagreus becomes the swan, which is known as Dionysus, and Dionysus means son of God. Same way, Orpheus is a great teacher of the Dionysian tradition. He was also said to become a swan. He raised up to heaven as a swan, so he became Dionysus, the son of God. And likewise in the Christian tradition, or at least in the esoteric Christian tradition, Jesus, when he resurrected and ascended to heaven, he was symbolized as a swan, meaning, and he was called the Son of God, which is Dionysus in the Greek name, Dionysus. So Jesus became Dionysus, Son of God, symbolized as a swan. And here's a sarcophagus that we found actually in the Largo de Carmo convent in Lisbon, sarcophagus with Jesus shown there as the Christ, as the Northern Cross, but also with swan feathers denoting that he's the swan. And there's the swan wings coming up behind him, swan arms, swan body, as it were, all covered with swan feathers. Cygnus the swan, which is also the Northern Cross. There are other examples of this around, but this is the only one that I found that's so dramatic as this. Now, the swan is symbolic of a great poet, but also, generally speaking, the swan symbolizes grace, beauty, love, trust, and loyalty, and also strength and longevity. The ancients believed that the swan sang a particularly sweet and beautiful song when people died, and even more so as the swan itself died. So the swan is representative of sounding or singing the word of God, the word that is all wisdom, all truth, and both beautiful and strong. Like the zodiac sign of Taurus the bull, the swan is associated with the throat. The swan, therefore, is symbolic of a great poet, one who speaks truth in a beautiful and inspiring way. And such a poet is known as a creator. And the poem itself, that the swan sings, is known as a sweet song, a beautiful song. And Shakespeare, for instance, is called the Sweet Swan of Avon. There are profounder reasons for this than most people might realize. Now, a pair of swans represents soulmates for life. And herein lies the secret or mystery underlying the Shakespeare story and the Shakespeare poems, sonnets and plays. Because everything is dual, not just mortal and immortal, but also male and female. In fact, polarity or contrast is essential to life in order to allow love to be expressed. And this story is told beautifully in the myth of Leda and the Swan, who have two sets of twins. The twins are known as the Gemini. Latin for twins is Gemini. Now in the myth, the swan is Zeus. Zeus had taken a swan form in order to make love to Leda, who's the Queen of Sparta. In another way, she's also a swan too, but in the myth she's called the Queen of Sparta. And as a result, she gives birth to two sets of twins. And this one set is known as Pollux and Helen. She becomes Helen of Troy. And they're the children of Leda and Zeus, and they're known as the Immortals. But she also, the same night, makes love to her earthly husband called Tyndareus, who's the king of Sparta. And so the other set of twins are known as Castor and Clytemnestra, children of Leda and Tyndareus, and they're known as the mortal twins. And note that each set of twins consists of a brother and a sister. And both pairs of twins are known as the Gemini, and each pair, male and female, is also twin to the other pair, the Gemini again. Now, story goes on, or in another myth, the two brothers, Pollux and Castor, loved each other dearly. So when Castor the mortal died, Pollux's intense self-sacrificial love for his mortal brother enabled Castor to be resurrected and raised immortal. And they became the heavenly twins, called the Dioscuri, sons of Zeus. Now this Gemini mystery is associated with the mystery of Genesis, and it begins at the beginning. And in Hebrew, the first verse of the first chapter of Genesis says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashabayim vet haaretz. And this translates as, in the beginning of the beginning that is always beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. The third word, Elohim, usually pronounced and spelled Elohim, is translated into English as God. But what is important to note is that the Hebrew word Elohim is plural, wherein Al, A-L, represents the Divine Father, and Allah represents the Divine Mother. And the Im, which stands for the word Mim, represents the watery void, which the Greeks called chaos. In other words, Elohim, or Elohim, is the Divine Father-Mother who dwells in the formless void. And the Bible goes on in Genesis to say the darkness that lay upon the face of the deep. This is the same thing. Al and Allah are commonly rendered as El and Ella. And Al and Allah are also known as Abba Ama, or Abba Amma, the Father-Mother, the All. In Aramaic, they are called Abba Ama. And Al and Allah derive from one A, the letter A, or Aleph, which symbolizes the source. And when they express their love for each other, they create light, the light of love, which is a joy, an illumination. They're represented in the wisdom tradition either by a single A, or by a double A, AA, or by a triple A, AAA. But often the middle A of the triple A is veiled by a symbol representing the process of loving each other. This secret is conveyed in the symbolism used in the English Renaissance and is particularly associated with Shakespeare and the Rosicrucian fraternity. The first appearance of the AA hieroglyph in a headpiece, that's a printed headpiece, was in a private publication made for Francis Bacon when he first arrived in Paris, France, in 1576, when he was still a teenager, actually aged 15, coming up to 16. This is the headpiece. And this headpiece was printed to head the Decalogue, that means the Ten Commandments, that were printed in Hebrew on 2 extra pages inserted at the back of 2 Hebrew grammars bound together and titled Hebraicum Alphabetum, the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, in other words. Incidentally, you might not know, but the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, stood in Kabbalah for the whole of the Word of God. Associated with the 2 A's, AA, are the Gemini brothers, sons of Leda, who are shown reclining on the 2 A's. And in the centre between them is a vase of fruits, signifying a cornucopia of good things, a holy grail. And the same AA Gemini headpiece appeared in De Republica Anglorum Instauranda, meaning the restoration of the English Republic, by Sir Thomas Challoner, that was published in London in 1579, this very same year that Francis Bacon returned to England. Now, in the 1640 English edition of Francis Bacon's Advancement of Learning, the Gemini are shown as twin sisters, or even as hermaphrodites, male-female, to give the full meaning. In the centre, you might be surprised by this, not many people pick it up, but there you have them shown as female Gemini, or hermaphrodites, if you like. And in the centre between the female or hermaphrodite Gemini is Dionysus, also shown as a hermaphrodite. Dionysus is holding a cornucopia in each hand with arms outstretched on each side. And he is arising or ascending out of a crown or diadem of pearls. And pearls are known as pearls of great price, and they symbolize the truth. Now both Dionysus and the Gemini are symbolized as swans. Moreover, the Gemini brothers, the Dioscuri, are not only referred to as swans, but they are represented as horsemen or knights riding white horses with swan eggshell helmets that flame with St. Elmo's fire. So here's an emblem picture that portrays this. And there you'll see that they hold spears, long spears, and they're known as spear shakers or Shakespeares. Now in 1592, two new stars appeared in Cassiopeia, the heavenly queen. There's Cassiopeia in the Milky Way, not far away from Cygnus the Swan. And she's known as the heavenly queen. And the twin novae in Cassiopeia were a follow-up to the very bright supernova in Cassiopeia that occurred in 1572 and shone very, very brightly, brighter than Venus in the sky, until 1574. And it caused a great stir throughout Europe. And this was because every new star that appears in Cassiopeia, the heavenly queen, marks the birth or appearance of a child of light on earth. And at that time, the Tudor Queen Elizabeth was likened by the poets to this heavenly queen manifested on earth as the Virgin Queen. And this was not just celebrated in England, who had the Virgin Queen, as it were. It was also celebrated abroad in Europe as well, by those in the know. The twin novae of 1592 were not so bright as the 1572 supernova, of course, but they signified the birth or appearance on earth of the Gemini, the spear shakers or Shakespeares. So this was a heavenly sign announcing the birth of Shakespeare, and this is exactly what happened. And these twin poems, Venus and Adonis and Lucrece, announced the name of William Shakespeare to the world. Venus and Adonis was published in 1593, and Lucrece, or The Rape of Lucrece, published in 1594. Twins, twin poems, twin years, 93 and 94. And the Shakespeare scene, or Shake scene, was then carried on for 30 years until the publication of the Shakespeare Folio of Plays in 1623. Most people think it ended with the death of William Shakespeare of Stratford-upon-Avon, but no, it didn't. It went on until the Shakespeare Folio of Plays in 1623, which revealed many plays which had never been published before. Now this was a 30-year period, and the 30-year period celebrated on the 30th anniversary is symbolized by the pearl of great price, which symbolizes truth. Truth revealed, in other words. Now the three main types of Shakespeare poetry, the poems, sonnets and plays, were, when published, marked by key headpieces which showed how the three types of poetry related to each other. The three types of poetry represent the three worlds of existence: the spiritual world, the celestial world, and the natural world, otherwise simply known as spirit, soul, and body. So I'm going to show you what are called the Gemini headpieces first, the Shakespeare Gemini headpieces. So at the top, in the top headpiece on this picture, you'll see the Gemini shown like Pan figures, Pan Gemini. They represent immortal spirits, each emerging out of a letter A. You see, that's the letter A, and that's the letter A. So these Pan Gemini are emerging out of the letter A and sounding the word through their panpipes. And in between them, you've got the face of what's called face of bride, or truth revealed. She represents truth revealed. Her veil is dropped down, revealing her face, which is also known as the countenance of the Lord. Reveals the secret of the heart. And she's crowned with plumes of light on top of her head. The illumined soul, the illumined being. But she's known as truth revealed. And then on each side of her, you've got two peacocks. And the peacocks symbolize beauty, compassion, knowledge. They have eyes which are all-seeing, all-knowing. They represent paradise. Paradise is when you see and know what's called the sod, the great secret, the supreme truth. And the peacocks in the classical tradition are taken as a symbol of the goddess Hera, the Greek Hera or the Roman Juno, the Queen of Heaven, the spouse of Zeus, who the Latins called Jupiter. And in the East, in the Hindu tradition, the peacocks are a symbol of Sarasvati, the goddess of knowledge, music and the arts, the spouse of Brahma. So two different versions of the same thing. Then in the middle headpiece here, in this picture I'm showing you, it shows the celestial world. And here the Gemini are winged. They're winged Gemini, and they represent the immortal mortals, the sons of God, sons of man. And bride, or truth revealed, is shown in the center, but not as large as in the spiritual world. And then below her, there are three salmon being fished out of the sea. So they're hanging there. And the salmon are known as royal fish. They're also known as salmon of knowledge. They're raised up out of the sea. And this symbolizes the resurrected, ascended souls who are illumined with wisdom. And for those who are interested, the three salmon signify in particular the three principles of the Holy Royal Arch and the Rosicrucian fraternity. And you also see here two hares crouched down back to each other. And hares were known as conies in those days. So this is a simple rebus for Bacchoni, the Bacchonis, for those who would like to know. Then in the lower headpiece, which comes from the Shakespeare folio, sorry, the middle headpiece is from the sonnet, Shakespeare sonnets. The lower headpiece is from the Shakespeare folio of plays. And here you've got the Gemini shown as mortals, represents the natural world, and the Gemini are there without wings on them. They're just mere mortals, you could say. And they hold between them a sheaf of wheat. And the sheaf of wheat represents what are known as the lesser mysteries of initiation. And then below them you've got the head of Pan, nature growing out of Pan's head. So there's Pan. Now Pan represents the foundation stone of the universe, or rather the lost word buried in nature. Pan is the lost word buried in the foundation stone of the universe. And this is indicative of Freemasonry and Freemasons who act upon the mosaic floor, which is the surface of the foundation stone, which are the lesser mysteries. So there you've got two Gemini performing the lesser mysteries like Freemasons upon the surface of the foundation stone of the universe. Then another set of headpieces in the Shakespeare works are the double A headpieces. So the first one at the top represents the spiritual world, and this comes from the poem Venus and Adonis. You can also find it in Lucrece. And this represents the spiritual world. And here the two A's are tied together as one. The true mystical marriage, in the highest, shown in the highest way, the ideal way. And then the one in the middle of this picture I'm showing, the headpiece in the middle, is the celestial world. And here the two A's are separated by a Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail is named very carefully because holiness is the name of the Red Cross Knight, as announced in Spenser's Fairy Queen. The first book of the Fairy Queen is about the Red Cross Knight, who is the Knight of Holiness. And this is also a symbol of what's known as the Holy Royal Arch. That's used in Freemasonry, although it's a very ancient degree, the Holy Royal Arch degree of companion knights. Holiness. And then the bottom AA headpiece is the one we've already seen. It's from the Shakespeare folio, 1623, and that's the natural world. Now, coupled with all these headpieces is a tailpiece, and this is shown in the Shakespeare folio of 1623. It's a tailpiece that comes at the end of many of the plays, not all of them, but many of them. And in this, you've got a wonderful picture or emblem, the framework of nature. That's what the framework represents, which is the underlying laws and so on, and what underlying geometry, if you like. And then around that grows all nature, the natural growth. So it represents both fixed and free, the double truth again, the fixed and the free. And hidden in nature is Pan. Pan, hidden in nature, the spirit of nature, hidden in nature, holding a cornucopia in each outstretched hand. And Pan, the name of Pan, spirit of nature, represents the actual sound that's sounded by the pan pipes. It's the sound, it's the vibration of the word in nature, and it's known as the lost word. The wisdom embodied in nature, that's the lost word. But Pan, because everything's male-female, or, you know, it's a double truth, Pan has his beloved, and she's called Echo, and she's represented here below Pan in a heart. And there you see her face, the face of Echo, Pan's beloved. And she's Pan's bride, the bride to be, if you like, the Holy Grail to be, when raised up to join him, symbolically. And this reminds us of the heart, of the Dionysian myth, where the heart of Zagreus is rescued and raised by Pallas Athena to become Dionysus. Dionysus, who's male and female, the two joined together to make one in the mystical marriage. So we go back to the Dionysian headpieces again, the Dionysus Gemini headpieces. So the top one shows, as I've shown before, the Francis Bacon's Advancement of Learning headpiece, where you see Dionysus is like Pan, but Pan revealed, with the cornucopia in each hand. He's Pan, the lost word, wisdom. He's found, he's raised, he's resurrected out of the coils of nature. And there he is, shown like Pan, holding a cornucopia in each outstretched hand as he rises immortal out of the mortal natural world. And he's male and female. So he's Pan and Echo, illumined Echo, married together, wisdom and knowledge, which Francis Bacon refers to as the truth of being and the truth of knowing are one, married together, the mystical marriage. And the headpiece I show below that is from Spenser's Fairy Queen, that's published in 1609, Bacon's Novum Organum, published in 1620, and the Shakespeare Folio, again, 1623. And here in the centre, it shows Dionysus with a veil that's dropped again. So he's associated with truth revealed, but he's more than just the feminine truth revealed, he is also married. He's undergone the mystical marriage. So he's a result of the mystical marriage, Dionysus, male, female. But the truth revealed. And he's holding aloft in his hands peacocks. And then each side of him, you've got the Gemini represented as archers. And as archers, they are representing cupids with arrows, bows representing the heart, shooting their arrows of love. And again, we got two conies back to back, bacones in this headpiece, just as a hidden signature. Now, Dionysus, the swan, is represented by the constellation Cygnus in the sky. In other words, he's the illumined soul who's raised up into heaven and symbolized by Cygnus in the sky. And the ancient Egyptian mythology called the sky Nut and represented the Heavenly Mother. So I just want to show you this for a bit. So this is a picture taken from one of the Egyptian tombs. So this is Nut, the arch of the sky. According to the ancient Egyptians, Nut, who's the sky, and her partner Geb, the earth, are the children of Shu and Tefnut, who issue from the divine heart. And in each annual cycle, Nut gives birth to Osiris and Isis, Seth and Nephthys, and Horus the Elder during the 5 days of midwinter. That's from the 20th to the 24th. And then you celebrate the birth of Horus on the 25th. Horus has been born, so you celebrate it on the 25th, Christmas Day. Now, the ancient calendar year for the Egyptians and for many other cultures consisted of 360 days, which is the average of 12 lunar months, which is a lunar year, and 12 solar months, which is a solar year. In fact, it came to be believed that 30 days for each lunation was considered normal. And so when the moon would have a lunation in 29 days, it was considered unlucky and therefore ignored. But the wise ones knew better than that, really, what was going on. And then the 5 extra days added to the 360-day calendar were when the 5 divine beings, Osiris, Isis, Seth, Nephthys, and Horus the Elder, were born. And of the 5, Horus the Elder is the quintessence, the summation and synthesis of the other 4. And he was called the Son of Truth. And he's equivalent to Dionysus. Horus the Younger, described in myth as the son of Osiris and Isis, signifies an individual incarnation or microcosmic manifestation of the macrocosmic Horus the Elder. And whereas Dionysus' symbol is the swan, Horus's equivalent symbol is the falcon. So here you can see the falcon being born from Nut at this point. Now, Nut is represented in the sky by the Milky Way. And the swelling of the clouds in the area of Gemini represents her head. And her mouth is at the cusp of Gemini Taurus, the Alpha Omega point. And that's where our midsummer sun is right now, at the end of a great age and beginning of a new great age. So it's a very significant time we live in. And then the bifurcation of the Milky Way, which is this black area here, actually goes up further than is shown on this picture. The bifurcation of the Milky Way in the region of Cygnus, there's Cygnus, represents Nut's pubis and thighs, with her legs continuing down towards the cusp of Sagittarius Scorpio, the other crossing point of the meridian of the galaxy with the ecliptic. So those are the legs, her legs coming down. And the star Deneb marks the emergence point of Nut's children at the exit from Nut's vulva. In other words, Deneb marks the place of birth. And Cygnus marks the child himself or herself lying in the place of birth between Nut's thighs, or approximately so. Another myth that describes the role of Cygnus is that of the celestial compass. And the myth tells us that God lays out our cosmos by means of a compass. And the centre of our cosmos is the occult pole in the belly of Draco. And the circumference is the ecliptic circle, our sun's path through the sky as seen from the earth. And symbolically, this compass is represented in the sky by the geometry connecting certain key bright stars. The compass points are marked by two bright stars, Regulus, the heart of Leo, and Spica, star Spica, who represents the ear of wheat. And the whole wheat plant actually is representative of Virgo, the Virgin Mother. The apex of the compass is marked by the star Deneb in Cygnus. So you've got Regulus, Spica, also called Alzimek in Arabic, and Deneb. And then to get the full strength of the compass, it also joins the occult pole from Regulus and Spica. That makes the celestial compass. And the line from the apex through the occult pole to the midpoint between Leo and Virgo on the ecliptic is known as the Sphinx line. That's the yellow line on this diagram. And it goes directly between Leo, constellation Leo, and the constellation Virgo. Not between the zodiac signs per se, but between the actual constellations, what you would see in the sky looking through a telescope or with the naked eye. And Leo and Virgo together compose the Sphinx, which has the body of a lion and the head of a woman. And it's known in tradition that God holds the apex of the compass in order to lay out the cosmos. The apex is star Deneb. And in this role, God is known to the ancient Hebrews and the modern Freemasons as the grand geometrician of the universe. The celestial compass is therefore also known as the Masonic compass. And in addition, there is what's known as the Masonic gallows square. So it's a Masonic square, but not the one that's usually shown, but it's the Masonic gallows square of a past master with sides of 3 units and 4 units, and therefore a hypotenuse of 5 units. And this is an expression of the right angle Pythagorean triangle with 3, 4 to 5 sides, known as the 47th problem of Euclid. Now, in esoteric teachings, the side numbered 3 represents the Father, Divine Father. The side measuring 4 represents the Divine Mother, and the side, the hypotenuse side, measuring 5 represents the Son, the child. And in the stars, the points of the triangle are marked by the 3 stars, Deneb in Cygnus, Vega in Lyra, and Arcas in Ursa Minor. So there's Deneb in Cygnus, there's the Lyra star, and there's the Ursa Minor star. Now in this triangle or Masonic square, special Masonic square, it's a right angle triangle, and Deneb is at the right angle, where side 3 meets side 4. So this star place with the right angle represents the mystical marriage of the father, number 3, with the mother, number 4. And therefore the place of emergence of the birth of their child, the son, the birthplace of their son. Now what all this means is that the centre of our zodiac, surrounded by the ecliptic circle, is actually laid out from a higher or greater centre in the Milky Way, marked by the star Deneb. This gives two centres of our zodiac, the occult pole, centre of the ecliptic, and the star Deneb in Cygnus the Swan, the centre in the Milky Way galaxy. And the two centres can be considered therefore as being like the Gemini, one mortal, that's the occult pole and the ecliptic, and one immortal, Deneb, mortal and immortal. So again, it is a double truth. Now the ancient cultures were serious about marrying heaven and earth. This was an ancient art practiced in many countries. So zodiacs, which are also incidentally what are called chakras, the chakra means wheel of life, same as a zodiac, they were also recognized and enhanced or laid out in suitable places on earth with a relationship to the sky so that the two could be married in some way. And Britain is a prime example, also Ireland and Scotland, the three making up what's known as the three lands, each with their zodiac, and dedicate to the goddess who is also a triple goddess. The triple goddess is normally equated with the three aspects or stages of the goddess, as maiden, then mother, then crone or elder, the wise woman. But the three can also be seen as a holy trinity, power, wisdom and intelligence. The goddess is all three of these. She has power, she has wisdom, and she has intelligence. And the name given to the goddess of the British Isles was Britannia, who actually equates with Pallas Athena, the spear shaker, or Shakespeare. So here's Britannia shown on a medallion with her spear. Later on the spear was changed for the trident, but originally it was the spear. And there's a statue of Pallas Athena, the spear shaker. And the story of Athena's birth, which is also Britannia's birth, wherein she rises up out of Zeus's skull, shaking her spear of light, tells us that she represents truth revealed. Now, as far as I've been able to ascertain, the landscape zodiac of Britain, which is now England and Wales, was originally recognised and laid out by the Celts. And the knowledge of the landscape zodiac was passed on, and it was used and developed further by successive cultures, including the Romans, Normans, Knights Templar, and the Tudors, and by the Rosicrucians in England, who were led by Francis Bacon during the Shakespeare period. And the occult pole of this zodiac, the centre of the British zodiac, is at High Cross, which is where the Fosse Way and Watling Street cross. That's the Fosse Way, and that's Watling Street. Sorry, Watling Street coming down to London. Now the Fosse Way marks the Sphinx line passing through Lincoln to High Cross. And Stratford-upon-Avon is the closest metropolis to the point that is Deneb. So Stratford-upon-Avon marks Deneb, the apex of the Masonic compass. Hence why Shakespeare was centred here, the place of birth of the sweet swan of Avon, which sounds the swan song, the divine word of wisdom. And this word is heard by many, whether they understand it or not. And Stratford-upon-Avon has become a planetary pilgrimage centre as a result, enabling the word to reach all round the globe. It's still going on. But Stratford-upon-Avon is just Deneb, the root of the Swan. The whole of the sweet Swan of Avon, reflecting the Cygnus constellation in the heavens, stretches from Stratford to Banbury. It's from Stratford-upon-Avon to Banbury, famous for the Banbury Cross. It actually goes to Crouch Hill, just on the outskirts of the present-day Banbury, but the original Banbury was established at the foot of Crouch Hill. So Crouch Hill and the original Banbury were all one and the same. And the spine or main axis of this swan is marked by the old road between Stratford-upon-Avon and Banbury, now labelled the A422. And the cross axis signifying the swan's wings is marked by the Fosse Way. The star Sadr, meaning chest or breast, which marks the heart of Cygnus in the sky, is signified by Pillarton Hersey and Pillarton Priors. Again, a double truth in the heart of the swan. And the churches there are dedicated to the Virgin Mary at Pillarton Hersey, and Mary Magdalene at Pillarton Priors. The church at Pillarton Priors doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, just the site of it, as it got burnt down. And Banbury, Crouch Hill, at the foot of which Banbury was first established, is the head or crown of this swan. And this is representing the star Albireo, meaning the beak, which marks the head or crown of Cygnus in the sky. Now, a further secret of this Shakespeare country, or Sweet Swan of Avon landscape, is that it has two swans, thereby manifesting the Gemini, the immortal and the mortal. The immortal is the ideal, the mortal is the real. Now, the immortal swan or ideal swan has a north-south axis or spine, in other words, an ideal axis, north-south axis, stretching from the Rollright Stone Circle in the south to Warwick in the north. So that's the Rollright Stone Circle down there, and here's Warwick in the north. And Guy's Cliff I put there because it's an important place, part of Warwick. Warwick Castle's just a bit south of it. Now, this north-south line is an ideal line associated with a terrestrial magnetic line. It is marked by churches and other sacred sites, and is in fact a double line or two parallel energy lines, both marked by churches and sacred sites. It also has an ideal east-west line, again marked by sacred sites and churches, thereby making a cross in the shape of the Northern Cross. So here's the east-west line from Banbury through Brails Hill onto Dover's Hill over here. Now, the Rollright Stones is the root of this swan. So it's equivalent to the star Deneb, the place of birth. And the Rollright Stone Circle is not like another stone circle where the stones are spaced apart from each other. The Rollright Stone Circle was a solid circle of stones originally, like a wall of stones with one entrance into them, a southerly entrance. So it was definitely built as a little bit different from normal stone circles. And this is because it's a place of birth, special place. Brails Hill represents the heart of the swan here, and so it corresponds to the star Sadr in the heavens, which means breast. And then Warwick symbolises the star Albireo, which means beak, which is the head. The stories associated with the rollright stones is all about king making. And Warwick also is associated with king makings and with swans. And the Beauchamp family, the Earls of Warwick, adopted the swan as part of their heraldry, as their crest, associating themselves with the legendary Swan Knights. So here we've got two Earls of Warwick, two Beauchamps, the 11th Earl and the 13th Earl. So there's the swan on the crest of their helmets. The two swans in the landscape manifest the idea of the Gemini. The Stratford-Banbury swan, I think, is the mortal swan in the process of being raised to immortality, whereas the Rollright's Warwick swan is the ideal or immortal swan in the process of descending so as to raise its beloved twin. Now the whole layout of the area geometrically forms a Solomon's seal within a circle, which is quite remarkable and clearly not by chance. Now the circle is symbolic of a grail, which could become a holy grail. And Solomon's seal indicates the possibility of this holy grail becoming a blazing star, a Star of David or Christ star, which will occur when both swans become immortal mortals in a mystical union or marriage. And there's two lovely swans flying together up into the heavens, higher and higher and higher. So promising for us all and for the landscape itself. The very earth itself can be converted into a swan and fly. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this talk on the Swan Mysteries. Somehow, some way, sometime we can all become swans. And we all have our immortal twin who loves us. We just have to learn to love more and more each other and heaven above and the land below. And there is wisdom in everything. So our role, our quest in life is to bring forth this wisdom and make it known. It is all about love and the mystical marriage. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this talk.